Get ready for KOL's Secret Slumber Party on CBS.
Yeah!
It's flashy.
How do I look?
It's splashy. Fashionista. It's so totally.
Get up and shake it.
Slammin'. We rock with Madeline. Sabrina, too. The trolls get tricky.
Oh, yeah.
While Horseland is riding high.
It is beautiful, isn't it?
And she's the how-to hottie. It's Cake.
Like it?
Love it. Get down, because the dance revolution is here.
See ya!
So check out KOL's Secret Slumber Party. Weekends on CBS.
I have listened to Radio KOL ever since it aired in 2003. I would look forward to getting through the school day to come home and listen to DJ Rick and his crazy antics. It was great how he could connect with the kids, in a way most adults couldn't, by using clean and funny humor. I was always too shy to call in, but I admired how patient he was with the shy callers, or the ones who talked more than he did. What I think was best about the show was the fact that it was one of the only kid-specific radio shows out there for kids. The listeners impacted how the show was run each day by submitting the music they wanted to hear or talking to Felg in his question of the day. Even after the cancellation of the show on November 28th, I would still watch the videos, even though they were months old, and I would always laugh, even if I had seen that specific show over and over again. With our world progressing into an age of technology, and more kids using computers each day, I believe that we should bring back Radio KOL and all the people who worked to make it the great show that it was. David A., thepetitionsite.com. Before we get too deep into the video, I want to disclose the reason for making this video. It is not just curiosity or nostalgia baiting. It started initially as me wondering whatever happened to a kid's site I used as a child. And it quickly became almost a retrospective on kid spaces online. Emphasis on almost. I want to explain my reasoning up front because I realize that it is a little weird for an adult to make such a passionate deep dive into a children's site, especially one to this degree. Call it mental illness, call it being a weirdo with too much time on their hands, but it feels necessary to do this. Kid spaces like this fall off the map not with a bang, but a whimper. A very small, quiet whimper. And considering how few kid spaces are left on the internet, it feels right to give the one that I enjoyed so much as a kid the retrospective and proper burial it deserves. After all, there's nearly no traces of it left on the web, aside from some news articles from the time period, former employees' websites and resumes, and a few scraps of archives. Right now, I'm sitting at my desk starting this script, right before finals week, because I love to slack off. I'm early in the research phase, just finishing the literature review, and I can already see this being more of a documentary than a deep dive. Even though I'm kind of awkward, bad at speaking, and not exactly the smooth-voiced diva this video deserves, I hope you can hear me out. This is a forgotten site with almost no traces left, so I have to make my own. I look forward to seeing how far morbid curiosity and my first foray into lost media takes us. And I hope you do too. For most of you, AOL should need no introduction. It's one of the most influential brands in computer history. Even the Gen Alpha kids are familiar with some traces of the software, like You've Got Mail, or the occasional mention of the AIM or AIM chat client, but as any good YouTube video essayist does, I will over-explain what does not need to be over-explained. AOL started in 1983 as a program called GameLine, under the company Control Video Corporation. As Wikipedia puts it, subscribers bought a modem from this company for about $49.95 and paid a one-time $15 setup fee. GameLine permitted subscribers to temporarily download games and keep track of high scores, at a cost of $1 per game. The telephone disconnected, and the downloaded game would remain in GameLine's master module and playable until the user turned off the console or downloaded another game. A really interesting idea for the time, as it was a very early form of video game streaming. Much like the modern day, it didn't do as well as the company would hope and would go almost bankrupt before being reborn as Quantum Computer Services. This time the company focused on online play for the Commodore 64 and 128 systems. Another very innovative idea for the time. From 1985 to 1989, the company focused on online play for Commodore, IBM, and Apple computers. a rare win for Apple gamers. This is where the company Quantum rebrands into AOL and focuses on becoming the online service for people unfamiliar with computers. This was not a slight at AOL by the nerds at the time, though they did make fun of it. AOL themselves came up with this reputation/motto. AOL was the third of the three big internet portals at the time, the other two being CompuServe and Prodigy. There was also Genie, stylized G-E-Nie, but it seemed to be a much smaller competitor and isn't as fondly remembered like the others, so we'll toss it aside. Prodigy is now defunct, and CompuServe is now only an ISP in the modern sense, and due to a series of company mergers, a sub-brand of AOL. Obviously, AOL was the strongest of the bunch and is the most prevalent today. I wouldn't call it a winner though. 1991 is when the DOS version of AOL software was released, with the Windows version coming in the following year. During this early era, AOL did still support its online play services like PC Link, but not Apple Link. These services got the axe in 1994. September 1993 is where AOL became the legend it is today. This is when they added Usenet support, which is a service similar to internet forums or bulletin board systems. Nowadays, a paid service, but back then, they came bundled with many ISPs, such as AOL. This is where the phrase Eternal September came from, referring to the phenomenon of university students getting their first desktop computers at the beginning of the fall semester. They signed up for AOL, probably with a demo disc, logged into Usenet, which was free with AOL, and filled the boards with slop. They drowned out the old nerds having thoughtful discussions, and overall dragged down the quality of the internet. For my general audiences, think of TikTok when 2020 came around and people had nothing better to do than film videos. Many users regard pre-COVID TikTok as being closer to Musical.ly. An influx of users onto any site or service drastically reduces the quality of said service. Part of the ridicule of these college students came from the new users' resistance to understanding and fitting into the culture of Usenet, and consequently damaging that culture. Usually those people drifted away, but eventually so many new users flooded in and dropped the quality of Usenet, it became known as Eternal September. And apparently the internet was never as good as it was pre-September 1993. This September 1993 is when the demo discs began. An aggressive marketing campaign, AOL started to send people CDs and floppies with copies of the software on them, as well as free trials in varying values. Based on the labels, they often came for free with purchases at stores like Home Depot, Target, and whatever the regional grocery store of choice is. Now, who started the madness? Jan Brandt, AOL's chief marketing officer, and apparently it worked, sending AOL from 200,000 to over 22 million users. I bet her bonus was insane that year. It is said that 50% of CDs made at the time were being used by AOL for demo discs. On each disc was a ton of free hours of internet connection, the AOL desktop client, and sometimes other miscellaneous bonuses. Quick tangent, I actually own a couple of these demo discs myself. Story time, if I may. I am a computer nerd, as one could tell. Since I grew up on AOL, I wanted to own my own AOL CD. I saw a real shiny one online a couple years ago, and so I decided to buy it off eBay. I was excited since it was shiny and a Target exclusive. I order it, wait a week or so, and it came looking like this. Like, actually, what happened? Why is it stabbed? The product listing had it in perfect condition, so how did it get like this? Anyways, this is an example of an AOL CD that many people would find in their mailboxes. My own dad said he's guilty of summoning tens of the things. He'd call up AOL, give them a new name each time, and end up with a ton. One big question I always had was, what was the original AOL exactly? And the internet wonders this too. Is it an ISP, a glorified web browser, a secret, more sinister third thing? The answer is that third thing. It wasn't an ISP as we know it, since Mr. AOL wasn't in your front yard burying cables, but they also were more than a web browser, and apparently they started with their own closed network of sites, only letting in certain pages they partnered with, such as CNN. A Reddit post explains this phenomenon to be an OSP, online service provider, since you're paying for the software portal, not necessarily the internet connection, though it does seem that AOL may have sent out modems from a partner company, and those modems did, in fact, come with a demo disc. This partner company is Action Tech. They still exist, actually, making Wi-Fi routers these days. And modems, though not of the dial-up variety. And going back to the glorified web browser allegations, that eventually became true, but we're not quite there yet. In January 2001, AOL and Time Warner merged. If you've ever watched a Warner Bros. Movie from this time period, you probably know that tagline, an AOL Time Warner Company, all too well. It was short-lived, the moniker only lasting from 2001 to 2003, but it is somehow deeply burned into my memory, and I'd imagine a lot of you guys too, considering you're probably about the same age as me. When the two companies merged, they were worth $360 billion. A year later, $120 billion, since when paired with Time Warner, AOL as a traditional internet company was considered overvalued. From here on out, AOL's value would go up, then down, and down again, and keep on going. AOL is a product of the 90s and did not thrive in the 2000s as it hoped. 2004 is an important year for AOL, as it is when 9.0 optimized releases. Pause my history lesson here and finish it towards the end of the video, because AOL 9.0 is where our story truly begins. And this version of the software is where KOL, the video topic, is launched.
Welcome.
I have been chronically online since I was a child. This is probably because my family was relatively tech savvy for the time. But we were not immune to the classic family computer phenomenon. We had exactly this computer, a gateway tower running Windows XP, complete with CRT display. On it was 9.0 optimized, and within the software I had my own profile and email. I didn't use the program for much, especially since the parental controls prevented me from watching this video of the hamster dance on YouTube, but I did play a lot of games and Neopets. I also spent a lot of time on the Kids Bop social media site, but that is a video for another day. To understand what a kid's profile on AOL looks like, we first need to understand what the AOL browser is. I'm still hazy on what it did in the 90s, but from 9.0 onwards, it functions closer to a web browser. And as far as I know, it was. The software, as long as my sources are right, should be a customized version of Netscape. I'm not sure if or when they temporarily stopped charging for the browser, but by the time 9.0 rolled out, a subscription definitely would not have been worth it. At best, maybe if you had friends on AAM that you really liked chatting with, but even then, just use IRC. By the time 9.0 came out, 2004 people would have been becoming more tech savvy and would use Internet Explorer instead, as that came out in 1995 or so, and only grew in popularity, even despite its reputation. Firefox as we know it was also released this year. The main functions of the AOL 9.0 client were to check your AOL emails, AOL Instant Messenger, access the web, and visit the various bookmarks at the top of the browser, use built-in security settings, and maybe use the bloatware it installs with, custom branding McAfee, essentially. But that's about it. Though I can argue it was at its prime in terms of polish and functionality, AOL was no longer relevant due to the lack of need for an internet portal during this period of time, as cable ISPs were becoming more commonplace, and typical web browsers were also growing into decent competitors. 9.0 was a stylish release with solid features and lots of personality, but this was, in fact, the beginning of the end. A side note for anyone looking it up, AOL Desktop and the AOL browser, better known as AOL Explorer, are entirely different. I will almost certainly call Desktop the AOL browser multiple times this video, but do know there is a difference, and that I misspoke. But also, AOL browser is also called AOL Explorer sometimes, which honestly makes things so much worse. The desktop client is the world famous one, and Explorer is kind of weird looking and also just Internet Explorer. I will put images on screen so you guys can get an idea of the difference between the two. A rose by any other name would spell just as nasty. Me, 2024, talking about AOL Explorer.
Welcome.
Now, for the KOL side of things. If you are a parent with kids, you can set up a kid's account within the AOL browser. Not just a profile, a full AOL sign up. This gives the kid their own email, login info, and special layout on the AOL browser. Hey y'all, editing me here. I entirely glazed over this one aspect of the KOL service that I am noticing in the screenshots as I am throwing them into Premiere. There was a version of the site called KOL Junior, and anyone in the early 2000s knows that websites loved having like multiple tiers of it. So like there's KOL, which is like, I would guess the target demographic like 7 to 13. There was AOL Red, which gets discussed later in the video before I'm likely gonna splice this bit in. That's for teenagers, so like as high as about 20 years old, and then after that you're a boomer and you go to AOL Normal, which still is going today. It's the news site pretty much. And I completely glazed over KOL Junior because it didn't come up a single time in my research. Like not a single article mentioned it, at least that I noticed. I think it came around later in the lifespan, which is why it wasn't part of like the launch package. So that's why I just didn't mention it at all in this video. I just wanted to mention that the only difference was that it had like little babby games for like 3-year-olds that required no reading or thinking necessary. And I only went on that part of the website once in a while because I think there was like 1 or 2 games that I really liked. So there's just not much to talk about there. It was a preschooler website during the height of preschooler websites a la Starfall and Brain Pop, etc. That's kind of like the demographic they were going for, like little kids in elementary school computer classrooms looking for flash games to play. So I don't talk about it, so I just wanted to throw a little bit in here in case you're an eagle-eyed viewer and you're just like, ayo, why does it say KOL Junior instead of KOL Normal? No one's gonna notice that, but in case you did, that's why. The most notable difference is when compared to an adult's account is that the bar along the top of the screen is now orange, and features different icons than before. The color can be changed, but it creates a visual contrast to the standard AOL look, which in 9.0 was a sleek pale blue that complemented the new logo. The top icons mostly link to pages on the KOL site, such as homework, radio, and games icons. KO Chat is probably just AIM under a different name. The icons in the blue section I'm unsure about, but if I recall correctly, it was mostly just links to affiliate sites. The difference to the icons on the orange side was that the blue ones would often switch out and were possibly customizable, kind of like a quick access menu. But it does seem that the icons on both sides would change between AOL software versions, as seen in this incredibly crunchy image I nabbed from a PDF. Also, I'm jumping ahead a little bit, but look at the screenshot from 9.8.2. What the hell is this? Look at those icons. What did they fire the graphic design team after the Time Warner merger? They had icons they could reuse. But no, we get some GeoCities looking ass icons with the most horrific gradients known to man. 9.0 had nicely stylized icons. These are just pathetic. These look like a 5-year-old went to town in Adobe Illustrator. Anyways, the ultimate goal of the AOL browser is to do just about everything you need. It had virus protection, PC scans, the browser, messaging, games, news, just about everything the average Joe would need. If you were really dedicated, you'd be like my grandparents and hide the Windows taskbar and leave AOL open indefinitely. I'm not joking. I remember exactly twice I ever saw the desktop background on that PC. This image, by the way. Rumor has it that at one point, people began to realize that AOL was just fancy Netscape and would subscribe for their internet service, but then use other internet browsers instead. Apparently, this was not as obvious a solution back then, and in the early days may have been impossible. Dubious sources state that the AOL subscription only gave access to AOL properties in the early years and blocked everything else. Conversely, AOL was blocked from any other service providers. But that wouldn't be the issue if you subscribe to today's sponsor, Express. No, I'm joking. I don't have sponsors on this video. I'm too small. This leads into one of the reasons that AOL was so liked. Their websites. Apparently, people really liked this stuff. Over the years, they had partnerships with sites like Sports Illustrated, the Huffington Post, now known as HuffPost, MoviePhone, and some others. I remember MapQuest was up there quite often. Many people paid for AOL so they could get access to exclusive sites like these. KOL, AOL Kids at the time, was apparently among these in the early days. As stated by its promotional phrase, included free with an AOL subscription. But if you're paying for a subscription though, is it really free? Or just another part of the thing you're purposefully paying for? AOL is guilty of calling things you pay for free and pretending actually free things are part of your subscription. AOL Mail is free to everyone, not a benefit of your subscription. Although I think in the early days it might have been a premium feature, AOL Mail. I don't know if they had free signups in the 90s. This was a reason for launching KOL. AOL wanted those numbers up. The influx of users from the demo discs wasn't enough. They wanted to have as many sources of users as possible, and the kids market at the time was huge. Edutainment and kids sites were really big in the old net days, with sites like Jumpstart, Starfall, and Funbrain all being titans in the elementary schooler sphere. AOL wanted in on this and launched their KOL site to provide homework help, entertainment, and news to its users. Starfall, for one, I would love to do a video on someday. As a kid, it was exciting to have my own login, like all the big kids. This was a big driving factor of KOL in the dedicated AOL Kids profile for the browser, giving kids that sense of independence and the illusion of being grown up. Getting to browse a site on mom's profile? Lame. Getting to browse the same site on your own profile? Cool as hell. Plus, it came with an email, a new layout/color scheme, and quick access to cool sites for kids. And, on a browser level, your own separate list of bookmarks and any preferences. As Malcolm Bird, the mastermind behind KOL as a whole, puts it, the service gives kids their own online world, not just one channel on mom and dad's AOL service. That one channel is, in fact, how AOL Kids had been operating. It was a site in the AOL ecosystem that functioned much like its successor, just on a smaller scale to KOL. The roadblock for kids, though, is that the profiles could be heavily surveilled by parents. This is the reason for one of my most formative memories. I was at a friend's house when I was a kid, probably about 8, and she showed me this exact video. When I tried to watch it at home, I simply couldn't watch it. YouTube was blocked through my parental controls, and I'm not sure why, since I'm pretty sure almost no one in my family knew what YouTube was. It was likely a pre-made list of sites that contained objectionable content. If I didn't make it clear already, the driving force behind AOL and KOL is ease of access. A 40-year-old woman might not understand how to install a Chrome plugin with parental access controls, but likely can on AOL with a setup wizard. Everyone back then knew AOL and its ecosystem. Why won't you leave Apple or Google? Everything is synced. Why won't you try Linux? You know Windows or Mac already. Why leave a system that works as expected, one that you already know? Before we go further, let's dive more into the features of KOL, shall we?
You've got mail.
The games aren't much to note. Standard Flash game fare. If you were online circa 2009, you know the type of content they got on there. Before we get too deep though, one last personal anecdote if I may. There were 2 games on there that had my attention back then. One was a Princess Natasha game called No Vacancy, I believe. Something to do with the haunted hotel. If I can find it on Flashpoint, I'll put it on screen. The other game was a simple card game that could predict the card you were thinking. This game was accurate as hell. I have no clue how they did it. One time I thought of a different card to try and trick it, and it picked that fake card I was thinking of. I have no clue how it worked. I don't think I dreamt this up, so if you have the .swf file, the flash file, comment down below. I need to dissect this thing and figure out how it worked. Because, on God, this wasn't like a very realistic dream that I had. I remember, like, vividly sitting there in the little family den on a day off. I think it was summer break. And I was just scrolling through the games library, and there it was. So please, any leads, I'll take the most meager of scraps if you can find any. KOL also had a homework help section. I never visited it because school at home, boring as hell. I only used Cool Math, but only in high school because by then I could swallow my pride and look for well-written tutorials online. Cool Math actually had a decent, easy to understand math section, but back when I was 6, hell no, games only. But if you were really a nerd, then it was there for you, with real teachers you could message if you needed help. I was a kid who didn't need homework help simply because I didn't care, and when I occasionally did, I was not about to turn to AOL of all places for help. I could see why they implemented it though, in case you didn't have a dad who will spend 40 minutes trying to understand the common core methods of modern math. The other tabs and links I don't have much info on. The KOL profile is long gone, and even with my old kid's profile, the AOL browser won't let me in unless I subscribe to their service. And for research, there isn't much aside from what I've already covered. Draw, poll, newsletter, etc. I'm not sure what each's function was, but considering that there isn't much info, I bet they were lame. Kids on the web wanted 2 things, chat and games. That's all that really mattered, at least in the early 2000s. I didn't need interviews with celebs. Totally lame. All I wanted was Princess Natasha, damn it. But one dude who wasn't as narrow-focused as me was Rick Adams, the host of KOL as well as world-renowned British radio host. Rick Adams. You might know him as the host of Radio KOL, or the dude who interviewed Jack Black that one time, or perhaps the host of hit CBS show Dance Revolution? Oh, what was that? You don't know him? At all? Well, dog, that's why you're here, to hear a retrospective on something you've never even heard of. If you couldn't tell, the point of Radio KOL was to play music and answer call-ins from actual viewers, as well as the hosts answering emails or AIM messages from viewers. It was AOL after all, quite literally just a digital radio show. No picture feed, just low-quality audio.
Barry, it's really nice to talk to you. This is your first time on Radio KOL, right?
Yeah.
So you have a sacred task, which at first is, of course, to tell 10 of your friends about Radio KOL and get to one of your friends on the show who's not a family member, and you can both win a Radio KOL prize pack, okay?
Oh, cool.
Now, you've got to sing this stupid song.
Okay.
So I've got an option for you. Would you like to sing it fast, or would you slow, or would you like to sing it this beat?
Radio KOL, or Radio K if you're a real fan, was the name of the radio show. But as a brand, Radio KOL also did interviews, especially with celebrities. 2000s teen icons for the most part. Think Disney Channel kids and other celebrities featured in kids media. Rick Adams' YouTube channel is still up if you want to listen to them. If at any point those get taken down, I save them all to my hard drive and can make an online archive if necessary.
Ladies and gentlemen, joining me live in the studio, I can't believe it, we're so excited, please really welcome, it's the gorgeous, it's the fabulous, it's Ashley Tisdale, she's on the show with us right now. Hello Ashley.
Hi.
How are you doing?
I'm good.
It's great to see you, you look fabulous.
Oh, thank you so much.
So what have you been doing? What have you been doing today?
I have actually...
For the general Radio KOL content, it's a very you had to be there thing. It was very locked in on what was trendy at the time. I didn't care about celebrities as a kid, but looking back, if I was, that would have been the best place to be. Somehow, they had legit musicians and celebrities on that radio show. For example, Jack Black and Miley Cyrus were both interviewed by Radio KOL, and they often had other exclusive stories and interviews. Celebrities were big in the 2000s in a different, more ubiquitous way than they are today. There was a finite number of big names that everyone knew and wanted insane amounts of information on, less spread out than the celebrity culture today. Personally, I wasn't locked in. I was, however, locked into Neopets. Bring back Habitarium! Moving on. AIM was another feature of the KOL Kids profile. It would have been great if I had friends. I had 2 people in my friends list, those being my mom and a friend who was never logged in, because most people were not lame enough to be on AOL in 2010. By then, most people used literally anything else. Off the top of my head, Skype, Hotmail, and plain texting were the choice methods for my friends. What really set KOL apart from the past and future versions was the combination of functionality with trendiness. It had a lot of genuinely solid features, while still being a charming site to be on. The colors and customizability were kid-friendly and exciting to look at. They somehow made the 9.0 optimized shade of blue kid-friendly and fun, which is pretty impressive. The stars that were all over the branding are super fun, and for sure the aspect that I remember the most. And back to the content, it isn't too different from the other iterations of KOL, but it has more personality. The articles feature popular guests and generally kid-relevant topics. The games have original characters with unique worlds and storylines. There were interactive storybooks and even a pseudo-virtual world. There was a couple other features that I'll mention later on, but all this content was very in-depth and unique. AOL Kids of the 90s was unique but not in-depth. AOL Kids of the future was not unique or in-depth. The AOL 9.0 version had it all. Seriously, it was a fully self-sustaining ecosystem and probably would have done better if launched a few years earlier, but by 2008, it was too late. The web as we know it was now born, and the smart age had begun. KOL had a good run, but all good things must come to an end. AOL has debuted its new logo, designed by Wolf Olins. The new logo will be officially unleashed on December 10th to coincide with AOL's public decoupling from Time Warner. Why did they say unleashed like it's a wild dog? KOL came to an end in 2010, now known as AOL Kids. The KOL as we now know it was over. The rebrand killed many services, such as Radio KOL, as you could tell from that excerpt that I read at the intro of the video. It became more or less a clone of the core AOL news site. A bunch of news articles, a few standard news site widgets, and some games. There honestly isn't much to note here, but I'll rattle off a quick list. The site had news, videos, games, quizzes, pictures, whatever that may entail, probably paparazzi shots, a blog, and message boards? Interesting to have that on a kid's site. It seems like moderation would be annoying at best, a nightmare at worst. A small thing I noticed was that on the February 2011 capture, the message boards redirects to a KOL page. In my research, these message boards were pretty much what people remembered the most fondly. I find this design choice to be funny though, as they literally did a Neopets. They redesigned half the site and left the other pages untouched. Honestly, respect. These message boards are almost entirely untouched from the old site, except for them removing the KOL logo, hoping that would be enough. It wasn't. Anyways, the topics are exactly what you'd expect. General kids' interests, celebrities, sports, games, TV, all the staples. The new AOL Kids site was redesigned by Ryan McCullough. High-quality screenshots still remain in his portfolio, giving an accurate look at how the site was when it launched. Of course, these may be mock-ups, as I noticed some tabs looking a little bit different, but I was there when the site debuted, and yeah, it looked a lot like that. It also matches up rather well with the archive.org captures. The redesign captures. The redesign was meant to more or less mimic the new AOL for adults, complete with the new brand identity, which was significantly more minimalistic than 9.0's gradient-heavy skeuomorphism. I remember back when the AOL browser updated and the browser icon became that black angular logo. I didn't think much of it at the time because all I cared about that point was Neopets. I suppose I wasn't the only one, seeing as how a rebrand was necessary. To get that audience's attention back. Not all agree though. Petitions were made and not listened to. The fan base was mad, as most chronically online kids hate change. Why wouldn't we? We knew, understood, and loved KOL. Why would we want this new, boring AOL kids? Talk about lame. As a kid, I loved minimalistic aesthetics. I thought it indicated a modern brand and intentionality. Looking back, that couldn't be farther from the truth. KOL had passion. You could tell how much love went into it, despite being the child of a campaign to reach a new audience for a huge company. July 1st, 2013, only a few days before AOL Kids' birthday. AOL Kids was no more. Not with a bang, but a whimper. By that point, there was no soul left. Who cares? It was a source for celebrity news and a few games. And if you needed kids' entertainment, there were flash games and virtual worlds. Just check any Izzy's video and you'll have an idea of what kids were actually doing during that era. I'm listening to the MSP video right now. To put things into perspective, the Wikipedia article for AOL doesn't mention the site KOL closing. It doesn't even mention KOL at all. I made a Wikipedia page for KOL back in the day. It was up for a few years and then it got taken down for not having enough content. There were crickets when this thing died, and then everyone forgot about the site, save for the occasional Reddit, y'all remember this type post? AOL Kids was a product of its time. KOL was made to latch onto the growing kids market in the late 90s, early 2000s. For the most part, it was successful at that. It showed parents AOL was a viable option for a family-oriented platform. AOL Kids, on the other hand, was an attempt at growing with that market and adapting to a more tech-savvy kids' market. But if you ask me, it didn't adapt in an effective way. I cannot stress enough how boring it was in comparison to the original KOL. Obviously, no shade to the designer, but as far as kids sites go, trendy and modern is just about the last thing you want. Bro should have been working on not kids sites, adult sites even. The site design is by no means bad, but it wasn't quite perfect for the target audience. It felt too sterile and unfun, for lack of a better word. Though it grew with the audience, I think a better course of action would be to revive the sister brand, AOL Red. Quick tangent.
My world?
My world. My world.
My world is totally red.
Red is my reality because it's moody.
It's chill.
Red is the color of our new reality
It speaks my language. It's psyched.
because it's unpredictable. It's flirty. Red is my reality because it's free.
Over 20 million teens go online every day, and Red's one of their top destinations. Our custom content's created just for them. Games, tunes, fashion, even Red original movies and shows. We talk to teens, not at them. And sometimes, we just let teens speak for themselves.
AOL Red was KOL for teens. It focused more on a high school, college age demographic. It tackled older celebrities, growing pains, relationships, and whatever normal teens were into. I was not a normal teen. I watched anime and was in marching band. That should tell you all you need to know about me. I think ditching the entire AOL Red brand and not pushing into it more was a mistake. If kids' sites are extinct, teen sites were the dinosaurs, dead and buried long ago. On the internet, you're either a kid or an adult. These days, there isn't even an option you are an adult in the eyes of every single website. AOL Kids was caught in the purgatory of that, neither an optimized site for kids or teens or adults. It was weirdly sterile for a kid's site, too immature for teens, and also wasn't marketed well. I don't think it was marketed at all, to be honest. AOL had given up by this point on anything besides their main homepage and email system. In all senses of the word, AOL for kids is gone. Kids' space on the web are few and far between, and if any still exist besides standard game sites, I wouldn't know because I am a fossil who watches nostalgia-based deep dives on YouTube. I do not care about where the kids are now. I shake my fist at the sky and shout TikTok sucks because that is what I do. Kids' spaces on the web are a thing of the past. I won't stand on a soapbox since I am a loser college burnout with no knowledge of the woes of being a parent. But I think kids should maybe not be on TikTok. Why aren't kids sites a thing anymore? What happened to the Kids Bop social media site or other kid-appropriate social media alternatives? For the uninitiated, Kids Bop used to have a Facebook clone. I probably won't do a video since I believe not enough info remains about the site to do one, as opposed to this video which had some scraps to do a video on. But anyways, it had videos, a timeline, and fun time wasters. As a kid, I had no desire to be on grown-up sites because of this, aside from YouTube. Kids Bop was awesome though. Nowadays, there aren't specialized spaces like that, or KOL. If you aren't convinced, sites like that could keep annoying kids out of your replies on Twitter and Instagram. Imagine a world. Part 2 of this video was about KOL and its timeline. But how has big man AOL itself been through that time? Well, spoiler, bad. I've seen a lot of sources pinpoint the downfall to have started in 2007, when the offices moved from Virginia to New York, or when they closed the call centers in America and outsourced to other countries, or when Randy Falco was sworn in as CEO in 2006. The true downfall started in 2009, the new logo, the divorce from Time Warner, the acquisition of Huffington Post in 2011. This is the chunk in the Wikipedia article that called it a digital media company. Internet service was a thing of the past. They wanted to be Yahoo, and they did. They're step-siblings with Yahoo now. They wanted to be where you can check emails and look at news stories. Maybe check the weather on occasion. Maybe try the search bar? Speaking of the search bar, that's what they're using the KOL domain for now. God only knows why. It's an absolutely ass search engine. Much like the KOL section, I'll be wrapping this one up quickly because there is no longer anything interesting to say. AOL is a news site. KOL is dead, and its SEO is bogged down by an online game. God only knows what call is. That story is Jover. Not because we're at the end, but because there is nothing good left to say. Except the very, very boring stuff that I left out because it is boring. Obviously, I just went over AOL's whereabouts these days, but you may be asking, what happened to AOL Desktop? Because I never mentioned that, did I? On purpose and accidentally, AOL 9.0 was the end of AOL Desktop. Figuratively speaking, it hasn't changed since then. At all. The interface is still the same. The login prompt is the same as it was back when I logged in every day in 2006. It's all the damn same. The only thing that is different is the desktop icon, and they don't install bloatware when you first install the program. Instead, it politely asks you after you log in. I installed an old version out of curiosity, and I couldn't get the desktop client to install, but I sure did get the other nonsense. AOL Gold is the modern iteration of the AOL client. Anyone with half a brain would look at this and say, yeah, that's extortion of the elderly, and you know what I would say? Yeah, it is. Back in its heyday, AOL was worth purchasing if you knew nothing about computers or if you wanted internet access. Today, it is not a glorified web browser. It is no more than a web browser. It is a web browser with many hyperlinks and an email writing feature. The lack of consistency with the UI buttons kills me. AOL is dead, and so is its graphic design department. And before you ask, yes, I did get the free trial to make this video, and no, I did not remember to cancel it. If I'm going to go all in, I'm going all in, and thank God for the free trial. And you may think that I'll now spend 10 minutes showing you around the browser, but I can't. There is nothing to show, it is literally just hyperlinks. But look at this. The email templates are bangers, the only good part of this evil, evil piece of work. I will now show you a short montage of screenshots of things that I took from my time around the AOL browser. Because I don't want to do a tour for you, because there is nothing to say. You just get a silly montage. If you couldn't tell by now, this wasn't an unbiased retrospective. It was a look into the past. I'm a flighty bimbo. I forget why I walked into rooms sometimes. I don't remember as much about KOL as I would like, so this video was a chance to look into what I'm not remembering, see what came before, and to notice the nooks and crannies I never got to explore while I still had the chance, like Radio KOL. I had no clue who Rick Adams was before starting this video, but now it feels like I've grown up with him. Despite being a product of trying to market computer software, I feel like there was a lot of passion put into KOL. Most sites have that "how you doing fellow kids" stank to them, but KOL doesn't for some reason. You can see that despite its origins, lots of passionate people worked on that site, and that even the bigwigs had to go and take a chance on a lot of aspects. I don't know what those aspects are, but they were there. I'm sure you could tell, but this video is getting big and I'm losing track of things and sources. Another reason I wanted to make this video was because KOL is lost to the sands of time. Researching this, a bit of a nightmare to be honest. I have heard YouTubers complain about researching well-known sites, so you can all only imagine how it was researching one that isn't well-known and isn't well-documented. KOL is a bit of a worst-case scenario. A site that is old and not well-documented. It didn't have a ginormous user base to fondly remember it. It didn't bring anything special to the table, but even still, it was a site that I spent a lot of time on as a kid, and it helped me learn about the ropes of the internet. And a lot of people that were very passionate worked on it, so as a thank you, I am making an insane video about it. Thank you, KOL, and thank you to everyone who worked on it, except for whoever turned it into a search engine, not that guy, but the rest of the team. Thank you very much. You put a lot of blood, sweat, and hopefully not tears into the site, and it meant a lot to plenty of kids, including myself. Hopefully, this video will cement its legacy and maybe inspire more fans of the site to emerge and talk about it. And that is all for this unusually long video. It is finally over, and I'm tired, and I can go to bed. Good night, my little meow meows.